We are underway here. Quarterfinals from Atlanta. A Temple of Malady will start things off. Top card's going to stay on top there for Pharaoh. Vess with a Forest. It's an Elvish Mystic. He's got the acceleration to start his day. Pharaoh will draw a card. That's a Forest. This is a Sylvan Caryatid. Pass it back over to Vess, who will draw a Forest. See his hand with a mountain. There's also a Chandra hiding out. That's a Rugged Highlands. So that'll give him red mana. He'll go up to 21 from the trigger. And no good attacks here, of course, so he will just pass the turn back over to Farrow. See what Farrow can put together on his third turn of the game. He's got 2, make it 3 mana, perhaps a Courser, it will be. Take a look at the top card. Opulent Palace will come in. Trigger, he's up to 21. Top card of his deck is an Elvish Mystic. It's not a bad start for either player here.
Very solid start here for John, although nothing to get the graveyard rolling just yet. His curve of creatures is fine, but that's not really the game plan he's trying to execute here.
Mountain here for Vess is land number 3. You see an Ashclaw Phoenix. Looks to be his weapon of choice, though he does have a copy of Pelucrados and a Chandra in hand, too. So a lot of options here for Andy, but he's going to go with the 4-1 flyer.
The risk here is if John has Doomwave Giant, Andy's set really far behind.
Hornet Queen is the top card. It looks like there is a Doomwave Giant in Pharaoh's hand. He does have a fifth mana source, a 4th land. Going to sacrifice a Delta. Hornet Queen's a powerful card, but it's going to go away.
Well, if John has the opportunity to cast Doomwave Giant this turn, I don't care what the top card of my deck is. I'm going to go ahead and get land number 5 and do that.
Well, he does search up a swamp with the Delta, and I think we might have a Doomwave Giant on the way, and it is hard to pass that up. I will agree with you there. Yep, and there is the 4-6. Bye-bye. Ashclaw Phoenix will, of course, come back, but now it's a morph. And, of course, if Crewfix will even head into the red zone.
Very powerful opening here for John.
Yeah, great mulligan. Vess will play a Forest. That's land number 4.
It's a surprise.
It could
be anything.
It really could be anything, that morph. Pelucrados going to come down, pass the turn back over to Pharaoh. Pharaoh going to draw. And we are going to need to see the top card, I suppose. Yep, because Courser has not revealed it. So a bit of a misstep there. And you see John already knows what card it is, so we'll see exactly what does happen here. Yeah, it says it's an Elvish Mystic. Top card now is a Forest.
When cards have some sort of non-intuitive changing of the game rule, like play with your top card revealed, it doesn't matter how many times people have that card in play, it will get messed up.
Yep.
Same reason morphs don't get revealed at the end of the game.
Sure.
Because you're not used to having to reveal face-down cards at end of games.
A Commune with the Gods. We'll turn over a Hornet Queen. Another Commune, a Whip. Sylvan Caryatid in a Swamp, so Whip is going to go to the Grip. The rest is going to go to the bin. The top card now is a copy of Sylvan Caryatid, 4 mana. Whip is in play.
John really firing on all cylinders here, and I do not believe Andy has a way to get Whip off the table game 1. Now there's a Hornet Queen in the graveyard, and Andy's deck is not that well suited to fight through a bunch of death-touching Hornets.
Yeah, this is getting ugly out here. Pharaoh's deck is just firing on all cylinders right now.
Exactly, and even without the Whip, this was not going well. I mean, John was beating Andy kind of straight up at this point, but now Whip is all sorts of trouble. Andy can't really kill things effectively anymore. And again, that Hornet Queen, I'm not totally sure what Andy's supposed to do about it. John is also at 27.
That's a lot. Wooded Foothills is land number 5.
This is one of those games where Andy is essentially losing on every front.
Yeah.
He's behind on the board, behind on the damage race, behind on inevitability.
And he knows he's in trouble.
And we don't know exactly what kind of hand John mulliganed away, but this is why it's important to mulligan aggressively with these kind of decks. When you get your pieces, each of your individual cards is worth so much more than one of your opponent's cards.
Yeah. You see John's hand over there. He does still have that Chandra. Does have a copy of Cetessan Tactics in his hand. Hornet Nest and Ash Cloud Phoenix. So good cards, as there's a nest. Here's a couple of mana. Lucanos gonna go after Doomway Giant, so not a bad exchange. Just pass the turn back.
Not a great turn for Andy, but probably the best he can do,
Yeah.
given the circumstances.
I know we're always gonna come into play. Trigger the Courser. Top card now, you have My Coast.
Oh, and Courser's been on a heater this game, too, for John.
Yeah, it's been doing well.
So, which is important because his deck needs a lot of mana.
Looks like we're gonna have a whip activation, perhaps, as he does tap 4 mana. Yes. Bringing back the Hornet Queen. Some insects will be joining it here in just a moment. And just a boring little attack for 2 in the air, but it is the 4 Death Touch flyers it leaves behind that are the problem here for Vess.
They're all problems.
Fair.
Everything John has is a problem. Also a murderous cut in his hand.
Yep.
Left over after all of this.
Plenty of cards in the graveyard, too. Happy to pass the turn back, knowing that he is very far ahead. Hornet Queen, a card that is making a huge impact in the standard format. There's definitely a cost to pay, but
it's so powerful against Abzan that it's worth just having in your deck with the intent on casting. And if you're looking to build a Whip of Erebos strategy, it's about the best thing you can do because it's great to bring back through Whip. Also, your deck is going to be playing this slower paced game anyway. So you're going to naturally cast Hornet Queen a good percentage of the time as well.
Chandra's going to try to get to work there on some of these insects, coming down and taking down 1, but Vess has got to continue to play defense here.
There's no offense to be had yet.
Nope. So, draw the My Coast. Take a look at the top card. Sidisi. Might be able to start kicking things in overdrive.
Andy has some tentative control of the ground for the time being, but part of the problem here is that if John finds a second cheap enchantment, he can whip back the Doomway Giant and play another enchantment. That's going to clear out the Morph and the Hornet Nest.
And then he's got the cut for the Pelucranos.
Yeah, he's got everything covered, assuming he finds one castable enchantment. And even if he doesn't, he's got enough pressure in the air and the ground definitely under control.
Well, there's a Mystic. Looks like we got a bit of a follow-up coming here in just a moment. Another Mystic, just going to pass the turn back. So boring stuff that turn, but interesting stuff probably the next turn with Sidisi. Vess draws his card for the turn. You can see the Rugged Highlands in his hand, so he's going to play that and gain a life. He's going to go to 13. Chandra going to take up, shoot down another insect. Chandra winning the war over the insects right now.
And John without the ability this turn at least to get the Chandra off the table.
Mm-hmm.
Unless he's willing to make a pretty aggressive alpha strike here.
Yeah, the one thing that these graveyard monsters don't have, this deck doesn't have that it had in the past, is a way to kind of sweep up the board. Mizzium Mortars, Bonfire of the Dam, something like that. Doesn't have that anymore.
Even something like Thundermaw Hellkite would have been really helpful here.
Yeah. Now, there's a Stormbreath Dragon. That's not so bad. And it looks like that's going to come in the red zone, and it will. Pharaoh, no blocks, so he's going to go down to 28. Pass the turn back.
Yeah, has Murderous Cut in hand, but there's not even a reason to move just yet.
Yeah,
John's
he's
got so much life.
Satyr Wayfinder on top of the deck now. Sidisi was the draw, so it's guaranteed to make a zombie. And he will decide how he wants to cast the powerful card. So turn over a couple. A zombie incoming. Top card now is a Hornet Queen. Jeez.
Yep. Well, I mean, they're all, everything's hard to beat at this point.
It's
If
really
that's an
true.
enchantment of any sort, John gets to fire off the Doomway Giant plus another enchantment. That's going to be hard to beat. Hornet Queen's probably the worst of them all, but
I'm inclined to agree, as the insects are going to come down. Put Chandra down to 1. And Chandra was doing a nice job of working away at that insect army, but 4 more are coming soon. And that's bad news for Mr. Vess.
yes. And still sitting with Murderous Cut in hand. Hasn't even had to pull the trigger on that.
Not at all. That's the last card. Temple of Bandit will come in. Top card's going to go to the bottom here for Vess. Not happy with what he saw. He has done a pretty nice job of locking up the ground, but just having some difficulty moving forward. He's going to shoot something here. Yeah, going to take another insect.
He's not going to beat John punch for punch once the game gets to this sort of stage. That's the big problem here.
Yep. This is how John wants every game to go.
He's got much more power, so Andy's got to either curve out on him before John can establish a board or fly over his board of blockers. And game one, at least, Whip of Erebos itself is a huge problem for Andy.
It's been a common theme with Whip of Erebos recently. Is like game one, it's a nightmare for so many decks.
Most people can't blow it up. Even the white decks are not playing that many copies of things like Banishing Light.
Ashclothing is going to be unmorphed here. 2 damage. Going to be dealt. And now 8's going to come across in the air. So Vess trying to get to work.
And we still really haven't seen the metagame move to a place where we see main deck erased, main deck Reclamation Stage. Maybe we should, but we don't see a lot of it.
Llanowar Wait's going to come into play. Trigger the Courser. Up to 20. Hornet Queen, of course, the draw for the turn. And Pharaoh, his board is quite cluttered over there with a zombie in play along with Sidisi and the insect token that he's currently holding. Going to go after Chandra. You see the whip and the Courser and then the Mana Accelerants with 2 Mystics and 2 Caryata. It's about to get even more cluttered because now here comes Hornet Queen and 4 more insect tokens. But the true lack of a card like Mizium Mortars, that's the kind of card that would have saved you in the previous standard format. Now these decks can just gum things up and you really can't do much about it.
Yep. I mean, there's some low power red sweepers you can go to, but Mortars is so easy to play.
See an Ashclaw Phoenix over there in Vess's hand. He's already got one in play, but looks like it's going to be slowed down quite a bit by the insect tokens that are out there. And he's going to have to get pretty creative to work his way out of this one. Looks like Chandra's going to start by going up. Perhaps he presses the 0 button, but he will go up. Take care of an insect token. Xenagos was his draw step for the turn.
And now Andy just can't attack. Because he can't put that Hornet Queen in the graveyard either.
That's a bad place for that. And I think if he attacks, it's going to be an insta-block with the Hornet Queen.
Yeah.
James Hames does win game number 1 here over Nick Vesey. Obzon mid-range up a game over Mardu mid-range. That's our backup match. If we do have time to jump that way, we certainly will.
Like I mentioned before, I don't think Nick has the necessary cards to have a good matchup against Obzon.
I'm right there with you.
The absence of Storm Breath Dragon is the biggest thing. I would not leave home without that card.
Old Storm Breath?
Old Storm Breath?
Yeah, it's hard for me to pass up too.
Seems like the biggest incentive to play a red mid-range deck in the format to me.
Well, Andy Vess agrees with you. He's got Storm Breath Dragons in his deck, but this is not the matchup for them.
Well, they're still okay here. Not once we get to this stage of the game.
Yeah.
If Andy's on the play and he has a lot of mana acceleration and John's still getting his shop set up, Storm Breath could be really good. But once we get here, the problem is once we get here, no card in Andy's deck is very good.
And Xenagos is going to check up and generate some mana here, it looks like. So if this does resolve, it can generate 4 red and green mana. You got 5, 6, 7. That's monstrosity on Storm Breath Dragon. That's going to deal 1. That's not all that exciting. And Pharaoh could stop it if he wanted to with the Murderer's Cut, but he doesn't even care.
I think that John would rather say the Murderer's Cut if Andy makes a move with Polukranos, because that's something that could influence John's board. He has so many Death Touch effects in play that Storm Breath being a 20/20 doesn't even really matter.
Satyr Wayfinder with the draw. Satyr Wayfinder's on top of the deck. Satyr Wayfinder's going to come into play. Satyr Wayfinder's about to go in the graveyard. So is Soul of Innistrad. Forest will be added to the hand. Soul of Innistrad, Wayfinder, and Whip of Erebos will go to the bin. Sidisi's on top. Zombie comes into play, of course, because Sidisi's in play. His board is mighty cluttered, but that's exactly the way he wants it to be in this matchup. And if Soul of Innistrad gets going, it'll be even harder to win.
There's a lot of angles of attack.
Yeah.
for the Sultai Reanimator deck.
The trick here for the Salter Animator deck is how do you break through this nonsense now? And that's the big question.
Well, there's no rush. You know?
Absolutely not.
Especially because he's gaining so much life off of all these attacks.
I think he's trying to set up the thing that you did mention, however, which is return Doomwake Giant along with having an enchantment, which he just hasn't, that draw hasn't materialized yet.
Yeah, there's not much of an incentive right now for John to attack on the ground because of the nest. So I think he'd rather wait for a spot where he can clear off a lot of Andy's board. Maybe at that point he pulls the trigger on the Murderous Cut, gets the Polukranos off the table, and then he can start making some real attacks.
You saw the block with the Ash Cloud Phoenix. Looks like we're whipping something back here.
And if John's got nothing going on here, he can do something, even something as anemic looking as whipping back a Wayfinder is fine.
Yep, that's what he's doing. Turn over a couple of cards. He'll add Temple of Malady to his hand. Top card now is, another Hornet Queen. Seder Wayfinder's going to die. A zombie will come into play since there's a Sidisi, in play. So, just slowly but surely, he's got so much stuff on the board. He's like, Where's this go? Where's this go? All right, this is a good place for these things. I guess it's your turn. Hornet Queen's my draw. So, top card of the deck will have to be turned over here. Well, that is a Hornet Queen, so we're good on that front. He's just organizing his graveyard. And then the Seder Wayfinder that died from the whip is going to have to be removed, so we'll make sure that that's correct.
Don't really blame John for losing track of one of his 47 permanents and triggers.
Yeah. So he should have a Seder Wayfinder in play. That is correct. And then he should have a Seder Wayfinder removed from the game. So, as he did whip one back. So we want to make sure the board state is where it's supposed to be.
None of this amounts to very much, though.
No, not really.
Obviously, we want the game state maintained accurately, but I do not think the Wayfinder in play or in the graveyard is going to make or break much of anything.
So everything looks to be accurate at this point.
Attention Legacy Open players, if you have any altars in your deck, please bring them up to me to let me double check that they're going to be okay to play today. I'd much rather have that conversation before the tournament than during it. Once again, if you have any altered cards in your deck, please bring them up to me so I can double check that they're okay to play today.
Susanna goes just make a token and pass the turn back.
Yeah, no attacks for Andy to make at this stage.
So you see all the lands there at the top. All right, players agree that's how the board state's to be, so Hornet Queen will be the draw. Whip of Erebos is on top of the deck. Hornet Queen will be simply cast. Third one of the game. That means more Insight tokens are coming.
Going to be a test to see how many Hornet Queen tokens have we brought to this tournament.
I suppose.
This may be a new record.
So we will have an attack here, it looks like, in a moment as well. 2 more tokens necessary. There they are.
At this point, I don't even think John needs to do anything about the Xenagos. He could just beat Andy to death at this point.
I wouldn't even care about that card. Here's Ash Cloud Phoenix. It's going to turn up. It's going to deal 2 damage. Xenagos is basically a Texas Planeswalker in the battlefield right now, in my opinion. It looks like he is going after it. And with both players having access to each other's deck lists at this point, if you're John, he just doesn't have any way to get out of this, and there isn't anything that he can ramp into with Xenagos that is frightening. There's not even an effect like Crater's Claws, which is just like, well, I need to minimize the amount of mana that he can generate because he can maybe Creator's Clause me for 15 or something. That's not even there. Looks like he's got another spell, perhaps.
I think he has a Temple of Malady. He's just debating about whether or not he wants to scry this whip to the bottom. Because he doesn't really need the mana. So I think it's only worth playing the Temple if you intend on scrying the top card to the bottom. But it looks like John just wants to get another mana into play. In that spot, though, I think that if I want to keep the top card, I don't bother playing the land. Because Scry 1 has some value.
Sure. So Vess's hand right now has an Ash Cloud Phoenix, another copy of Xenagos. Quick update for you guys in our 1 vs 8 match. Matt Bond with Obs on mid-range up a game over Sean Rusing playing Obs on aggro. Felt that's how that match would probably break down.
It's a tough matchup for Obs on aggro.
Xenagos going to tick up. Looks like this is going to flip over. Ash Cloud Phoenix doing a little bit of work in a long, drawn-out game like this. You can do some pretty sweet things. Here's 5 mana. Gonna exile the Soul to get back a Hornet Queen, a Doomwake Giant, and a Satyr Wayfinder. So,
Sure.
yeah, don't get to see that a lot.
Pretty good assortment of creatures to get back.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a long, drawn-out game like this, you could actually activate a Soul from the graveyard. Life's pretty good. So it's time to untap all this rubbish, draw the whip. Top card is a forest. Put that into play with the Courser. Gain a little bit more life. Island will be the draw next turn, presumably. We'll see. We're going to go reaching for all those insect tokens now.
I think John's still determining if he wants to be doing anything about the Xenagos or not.
Yeah. Looks like we're going to play a Doomwake Giant first. And I like that. Get those Phoenixes off the board. Or at least turn them down so it's clear that you can attack in the air. He can also play a replacement whip here and maybe clear out the Hornet's Nest and some other nonsense. Satyr token as well.
Yeah, I think John's just trying to determine, does he have a lethal attack here if he clears out enough of Andy's blockers?
Yep.
I suspect the answer is yes.
With Andy down to 7, and you likely have nothing to play around as far as an instant is concerned.
And John's still
okay.
with a murderous cut left over, too.
Yep. Yeah, Cuddy's had the entire game. I think even Andy knows he's beat at this point. Yeah, he's going to pack it up. John Farrow's going to win game number 1 here over Andy Vess. Sultai Reanimator up a game over Green Red Monsters. As we will come back to the booth, it is time for our first Star City Games Premium giveaway. Patrick has the rules, and I have the first question.
So Cedric will ask you a question. You'll tweet your answer at SCG Live and hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responses, one will be selected at random for 3 months of Star City Games Premium content. Please keep in mind this giveaway is run at the full discretion of StarCityGames.com and that Twitch TV is in no way affiliated with giveaways on stream. Also, make sure you're following us on Twitter so we can get that prize over to you.
John Farrow's Sultai Reanimator deck list is a rather innovative one that we've enjoyed watching so far as he is up a game here in the quarterfinals. He does have a 1 of black creature that does cost 6 mana. If you were paying attention, you actually got to see it be activated near the end of that game. Name that 1 of 6 mana black creature that he does have in his main deck. And if you can, hashtag the answer with the hashtag of SCG Premium. Make sure you're following at SCG Live, and we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our quarterfinal round, which looks to be a rather lengthy one. These games don't go too quickly.
With Obzon mid-range, Mardu mid-range, which can take a while sometimes, although it's a little bit on the faster side, and DC Whip, I think we'll be settling in for a long elimination rounds.
Well, we will head back down to the match. We will take a look at the sideboards here, and it is going to be 4 copies of Goblin Rebel Master, 3 Reclamation Sage, 4 Lightning Strikes, 2 Perforos, God of the Fortune, 2 copies of Arc Lightning. I do think I like Perforos in this matchup.
Well, I'm not sure. I definitely like Reclamation Sage. That's got to be the first card that comes in. Answers Whip, Doomway Giant, Courser, Crewfix, a number of things. After that, Perforos seems okay, but I think that John's deck is more about locking up the ground than it is necessarily about having a damage race. I think that the Rabble Masters, the Reclamation Sages, and the Perforoses are all reasonable cards, and it just depends on what card Andy wants to cut out of his deck. I think the 4 copies of Hornet Nest has to come out. I think the Setest and Tactics are not great in this matchup. And then there's probably a little bit of shaving that can be done as well. So I think there's room for all 9 cards, and they're probably upgrades over the other things that Andy has going on in his deck.
Other side of things, you'll find more Reclamation Sages, 3 for John Farrow, 2 Negates, 4 Ashiok Nightmare Weaver, Liliana Vess, 2 Drowning Sorrows, and 3 copies of Thoughtseize.
Not that excited about anything that's going on here. I saw John bring in Ashiok against Mardu earlier on in the tournament, which I wasn't that thrilled with, but it means that I guess he values Ashiok in most mid-range creature matchups. The Drowning Sorrow's okay if you think that Andy's going to be bringing in Rabble Master and Reclamation Sage, but not very good against the rest of his deck. I suspect the Drowning Sorrows will be coming in, and possibly Ashiok.
Okay. I like Ashiok in this matchup. And we saw him bring it in yesterday, too, when he was playing for top 8.
Yeah, that's why. I suspect that John brought it in a similar matchup before, so I believe he'll bring it in this time as well.
As far as updates are concerned, there are other matches for you guys at home. Again, Matt Bond, our #1 overall seed with Obzon midrange, up a game over Sean Rusing, playing Obzon aggro. And then we've got James Hames with Obzon midrange, up a game over Nick Vesey, playing Mardu midrange. The other last match, #2 overall seed, Brian Scholl, playing Mardu midrange against JT Hendricks, also playing Mardu midrange. They're still battling it out. No update there yet for you Mardu fans, but if we do have an update, we will let you know. Oh, I take that back. Brian Scholl, the winner of the match, takes down JT Hendricks 2-0, so he will be our Mardu player advancing there, waiting to play the winner of James Hames and Nick Vesey.
Brian, the build with Bermaz, which you've said earlier that you really like.
Big
this
fan.
Particular metagame.
Big fan. Looks like James Hames and Nick Vesey headed to game number 3 between Obzon midrange and Mardu midrange. So a good tournament there for JT Hendricks, but not able to continue on. Looks like he'll be getting ready for the Legacy Open. That'll be starting in just a little bit here. We do have players filing in, getting ready to cast their treasure cruises and their brainstorms.
See if we get a 9-rounder today. I was really impressed with 470 showing up on a holiday weekend.
Yep. Will players stay at home and watch football with their families, or do what's important and play Magic?
There are no bad choices here.
Debatable. I'd rather get out of the house and play Magic.
If I was a Falcons fan, I would definitely be here, you know.
Sure. Hey, well, hold on. That's the first place Atlanta Falcons, mind you.
I guess, sure.
That's true. At 4-7, they're in first place. That's pretty impressive.
They should just take that division and dump those teams into the SEC.
First place, baby. Tied for first with the New Orleans Saints at 4-7. That's just a really good division of football.
Yeah, I guess so.
Might be the first time in history that 6-10. 6-10 is live to win the division. They shouldn't even be allowed to play in the playoffs.
No.
Everyone should just be banned. It's a pathetic display.
At least give Auburn a crack at it, you know.
Did they win that thing yesterday? What do they call that?
The Iron Bowl.
Ah, yes. The reason Todd Anderson was not here watching the Iron Bowl from home. A likely excuse, Todd.
It actually is a likely excuse.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
I believed him when he told me that.
I'm gonna check in. See how they did. Though I guess I would have heard something from Todd if they didn't win, or Callie. Big Alabama fans. And it is confirmed. Nick Saban and company victorious.
Okay.
In the Iron Bowl. Why is it called the Iron Bowl?
I don't know. Maybe iron is a resource found in the state. Maybe they have iron mines. I don't know.
All right. I guess the Washington version of Washington State one I think is like the Apple Bowl.
Right, because apples are from there.
They have great apples in Washington, I'll tell you.
Right.
They are really good. You come to Seattle a couple weeks, I'll get you a really good apple. Yes, I will. Don't say I've never done anything for you. I'll get you the best apple that 69 cents can buy.
It's very generous of you.
What?
It's actually not particularly generous.
Our friends
but it's nice
for?
of you.
Both players going to draw their opening hand. Vess will be on the play. He's got an Elvish Mystic to start things off. Farrow will draw. He's got a Temple of Malady. He'll be doing some scrying and some fixing of the mana. And consult the hand before figuring out where he wants to put this card.
You see a Xenagos in Andy's opening hand here, and this is one of the high variance cards of the matchup. If John's draw is a little fumbly, if it takes him a while to get set up, Xenagos can be really powerful, but if John gets the board locked up like we saw last game, it doesn't really do very much.
Temple of Abandon going to come down here for Vess. Top card to the bottom. And attack for 1. Well, we're going to head back Pharaoh's way, it looks like. Though, it looks like Vess does have a copy of Perforos in hand. I had a feeling he might bring that in.
Perforos, Xenagos, and Reclamation Sage, really solid hand.
Yep. Pluto Delta.
The fact post-board that he has ways to interact with Whip makes it very different.
Here's a copy of Sylvan Carry added. So mana acceleration for Pharaoh coming out a little bit late. But good to go. So no Elvish Mystic, but does have Carry added. Vess with a Mountain. And this is Xenagos. Satyr token on the way. And it looks like just a passing of the turn. I'd attack.
Just put the man to the test.
Might be a little sleepy this morning.
Right.
Looks like a Courser. Yep. Top card. Forest. John going to consult the grip here. See if he wants to play that or a land in hand.
I mean, this turns a pretty big swing here.
He's going to play Llanowar Waste.
If John just plays the Courser because of the Reclamation Sage.
He's going to cast the Thoughtseize now. Thoughtseize pretty big.
I mean, John made a huge concession here, not playing that land off the top of his deck, and he's very fortunate that he did, because this hand would have been all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, Xenagos, Perforos, Reclamation Sage, and a Wooded Foothills are the cards. So John, of course, will take 2 from the Thoughtseize, 1 from the Llanowar Waste, and then decide what he would like to select with the discard spell. And it will be the God of the Forge, as that one cannot get taken off the board once it's in there.
So this is a great setup for John if he has Drown in Sorrow, because most likely this Reclamation Sage is going to go after Courser or Crewfix.
Yep. Though it does beg the question on if you're supposed to save the Reclamation Sage for a Whip of Erebos.
The problem is, you know, right now John has nothing going on in his graveyard. The lifelink doesn't matter because he has no power in play, and your entire team is brick-walled by the Courser. So I understand you're worried about Whip of Erebos. It's John's most powerful card.
Like that one right there.
But I don't think you can. I don't think you can afford to just say, okay, I'll leave your Courser in play, start, you know, finding extra lands and setting up your draws.
Well, that's a pretty good commune there. Doesn't get to that top card just yet. Has to select a card first. So he will take the Whip. The rest will go to the bin. The most important card there, of course, Hornet Queen. Now the top card there is Satyr Wayfinder. So decisions here. There's a Forest. There's Xenagos, number 2.
And I like this play a lot from Andy here. He's identified, you know, he's running out of time already.
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't want to play this kind of game, right?
Yeah.
So I actually like this play a lot as well, which is just, I need to try to overwhelm you with these 2/2s. And because, like, you know, once you get Whip in play and all that stuff, it's very hard to win.
With a Hornet Queen in the graveyard, it's not like his creatures are worth very much going forward.
Yep. So all of a sudden, Pharaoh's down to 3. I'll draw a copy of Satyr Wayfinder.
And he might just be able to push John out of the game before he can whip back that Hornet Queen.
Yep. It certainly seems as though that's the plan. We'll say that.
And John may not even be able to add this Satyr Wayfinder to the board, because if he plays Satyr Wayfinder and wants to play his whip after the fact, that means he has to tap his carry added, and he really needs every blocker he can get his hands on at this point. The Wayfinder plus the Courser plus a land drop puts him to 7 if Andy attacks with everything. He blocks the 2 biggest things, and Andy still has exactly 7 coming across if he makes a token with Xenagos. So that line of play does not work right now. And John's realizing this as well. He cannot play Whip plus Wayfinder this turn and survive on board.
He's going to play Wayfinder here. Take a look at the top couple of cards. 2 Wayfinders, Temple Malady, you have My Coast. Coast will come down. Top card is a Doomwake Giant. He'll play the Coast, go up to 4, play the Whip, and just hope the opponent makes a mistake, I think, is the plan.
Yeah, I just don't think this works if Andy makes a token and attacks with everything. I think he has exact 7 coming across.
Draw. I think he's got another Xenagos in his hand too, so. You see he's going to set up and see, okay, how much can you do to me? Yep, make a token. Yeah, make another Xenagos, make another Satyr token. This makes it super easy too.
Sure, this is unnecessary, but it is in case Andy is worried he's counting wrong.
Yep, there's another Satyr token. He's got the other Satyr tokens on the side saying these are the ones that you'll block, and the rest of the damage will come through. So Andy Vess is going to tie things up here against John Farrow. Green Iron Monsters and Sultai Reanimator are going to be headed to a 3rd game. And that's the kind of game he probably has to play. The longer the game goes, the worse it is for Vess, so he's got to be the aggressor in the matchup.
That's a great recipe. It took John a little while to get his shop set up, and you saw exactly Andy's game plan there. Was able to win the game the turn before John was going to be able to stabilize through Whip of Erebos and Hornet Queen.
You take a look at the sideboards here yet again. Not too surprising to see Reclamation Sage there from Vess's side of things. Perforos too. Don't know if we'll see Lightning Strike. I can't imagine we'll see Goblin Rebel Master on the draw. Seems pretty poor there. And I don't think we'll see Arc Lightning either, though it does have some uses in the matchup.
Perforos and Reclamation Sage seem excellent to me, and Andy does have the 4 copies of Hornet Nest that I believe just have to come out of the deck.
Yeah, they just don't do very much.
After that, he's got some other options. You know, does he want all these Setessan tactics? Does he want the Chandras? Does he want every copy of Corsair Crewfix? These are mediocre cards in the matchup in my mind, so there's room to go further than that. It's possible being on the draw plus the threat of Drown in Sorrow will keep Goblin Rabble Master in the sideboard, but I think in the abstract it is better than some of the other options that he has.
Oh, we're going to see.
Rabble Master is also a nice pairing with Perforos. So.
Sure, if you can get that going. Because Rebel Master doesn't have to attack. The goblins will likely die, but that's okay.
I just don't know how much Andy respects the possibility of Drown in Sorrow.
Sure. Two hiding out here in the sideboard you guys can see from home.
I can see John saying, yeah, I obviously bring these in, or John saying, yeah, there's no way I go near this card. Yeah. I don't know what his feeling is on it.
Given the way that he just lost that game, maybe he goes towards it for game 3.
It would have been good that game, that's for sure.
It'll linger in your head.
But if Andy's, you know, carry added into Courser, into Stormbreath Dragon, Drown in Sorrow is going to look pretty stupid. So good against some portion of Andy's draws and not good against others.
Some people at home not very happy about your Atlanta Falcons bashing. Not very pleased with how you feel about Matt Ryan and his friends.
It's okay. I'm a Giants fan. This is the only joy I can get this season.
That's true. That's true. Now you have the player with the catch of the year.
That's true.
That's like winning the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah. The combination of Odell Beckham Jr.'s spectacular hands and Eli Manning's errant passes make for some great highlights.
That's true. That's true. Eli really can never get him on target.
Right. You would never see this stuff if he was playing with Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers.
I suppose, yeah. He would just get to make easy catches.
Right, yeah. You would never know.
Sure. I guess that does make sense.
It's a lethal combination for the highlights.
So really what we should be doing is thanking Eli.
Right.
For the bad pass.
For his C- throws all across the field. Yep.
I've just been informed.
Where is his credit?
I've just been informed that the Giants will not be sponsoring the Open Series.
The New York Giants are not
yeah, they're not sponsoring the Open Series now. So another one just slipping through the cracks there, Patrick. You know, sometimes you have to dial it back, I think.
Yeah. I can't help it.
Just a touch. This broadcast is not going to be up and running much longer. And Opio Pal is going to start things off.
We are making some powerful enemies, that's for sure.
We are. A Temple of Abandon is started up here for Vess. Seder Wayfinder, turn number 2 for Pharaoh. Take a look at the top. Murderous Cut, Llanowar Waste, you have My Coast, and a Seder Wayfinder. So Waste will go to the grip. Vess, does he have Mana Acceleration? Yes, he does. Sylvan Carry added. So he might pull ahead here. Let's see, here's a Commune.
Looking at a lot of cards.
Yep. So what this deck wants to do, Whip of Erebos among them. See a Cut, a Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Sylvan Carry added. Whip's going to go to the grip.
Still nothing to really do with the whip, fortunately for Andy.
Yeah, not just yet. Third lands Llanowar Waste and pass the turn back. This is an important turn here for Vess. Does he have a 4 mana spell to play ahead of schedule? Be it Xenagos, be it Pelucranos, Ash Cloud Phoenix. The answer is no. There's a Rabble Master, so he brought those in from the board.
Okay. I like it not because I think Rabble Master is especially good against John, but I think that Andy has enough bad cards that Rabble Master is better than other things he has going on.
Goblin Token to serve in for 1. We're going to head back Pharaoh's way now. There's a land. Looks like he's going to take some damage here. Sidisi. Turn over a couple. The whiff. No zombie.
And Andy's still got to be pretty happy that nothing of significance has been flipped over yet.
There's a land.
Andy's hand looks pretty juiced. I mean, I think there's another Rabble Master, a Stormbreath Dragon, and a Setestan Tactics.
Pelucranos as well.
There's a lot going on.
Yep. Now it's time to figure out what order do we play these spells in.
And John's draw is a little fumbly, as I mentioned before. He does have Whip, he does have Sidisi, but there's nothing of substance that's been flipped over yet. And John can't afford to take an entire turn off casting Whip at this point. He has to have a guarantee that something's going to come over if he's able to do that. So,
the thing about this Saltire Reanimator deck is there is some assembly required in getting the shop set up.
yeah.
Once you do, it's very hard to knock over the house of cards, but it takes a little while to get set up, and Farrow was not able to do it the last game, and he's having some difficulty doing it this game. If he's able to find a zombie with the Sidisi there, maybe we're not saying that, but the fact that it's just a 3/3 that comes into play, and Vess does have an answer, kind of changes things a little bit. Goblin Token going to come in. Everybody coming in the red zone now. So we'll see what does happen here. Looks like Sidisi's got some interest in blocking. That'd be hard to pass up a block, I think.
Yeah, the question is it eating a token or is it trading with a Rabble Master?
Yeah. John taking a look at his hand. You can see the Corsair. We know about the whip. I believe there's a Hornet Queen there as well, but we're a little ways away from that. Gonna block a token.
He also has the option of doing this block, which is a chump block, plus eating one of the tokens.
Sure. So we'll see if things do work out the way that Pharaoh would like them to. There goes a Goblin Token. Follow up, Pelucranos. The big guy. Take a draw.
This is pretty nice. I mean, it means that the ZZ can't attack unless John has something like Murderous Cut, in which case the Stormbreath Dragon that's in Andy's hand is then freed up.
Pharaoh in a tough spot here. Looks like he's going to take one to cast a Corsair. Yes, looking for land. Found it. Delta. Top card, Delta. That was important. Big turn there for Pharaoh. He needed a land. Now he knows he's got another one coming next turn, too. Vessel untap and draw a card. You see the Setestan Tactics. He's had it for a little while, just figuring out the best way to use it.
Yeah, it's dangerous to pull the trigger just because of the possibility of Murderous Cut. It's likely Andy's entire turn whenever he decides to commit.
1 versus 8 is over. Matt Bone, #1 overall seed with Obzon midrange, takes down Sean Rusing playing Obzon aggro. So he'll be moving on to play the winner of this match.
Also, Andy has so many easy outs to not have to use the succession tax because he has really good stuff to do this turn. You can play another Rabble Master. You can play a Stormbreath Dragon. I don't like playing the second Pelucranos.
Bold.
I think we can write that play off.
Somebody's had their coffee this morning.
On the ball already.
I think the judges said, Mr. Vess, it is time for you to make a play. Stormbreath Dragon. We're going to the skies. Token. Everybody. Looks like maybe Pelucranos might be hiding back on D. A little surprised by that. Block there.
If we go back to next turn, last turn John had the option of either chump blocking with the Wayfinder on the Rabble Master or trading with one of the tokens. He elected not to, and now his Courser's not in a position to block the Rabble Master, or it would be a trade instead.
Sure. A little surprised not to see Courser block a Goblin token.
Yeah, that one's on the house.
That's very strange to me.
That's a free block.
Yeah. Gonna sacrifice the Delta, get a land.
And Andy in these post-board games has done a very good job of keeping John off balance enough where John does not have the time to deploy Whip of Erebos into play. He's making John fight fair, you know, just with the cards in his hand, not doing anything crazy with Whip of Erebos. And Andy's a favorite in those kind of games.
You know, there's also the aspect because of the sideboard that Andy has. Here's a Doomwake Giant, but the sideboard that Andy does have, you know, you can't afford to just take the turn off.
Yeah.
With casting Whip, because if it gets Reclamation Stage, it's just a disaster.
Exactly.
You know, it's like you didn't do anything at all. Doomwake Giant comes down and take care of those Goblin tokens. Top card of the deck is a land, and I believe Pharaoh does have a Hornet Queen, so that's pretty important. Vess has got to continue to try to close this thing out. The longer we go, the worse it is.
And his deck does not have a large burn element to it, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, the burn is like Stormbreath Dragon's monstrosity.
Yeah.
That's the trick. Beatdowns. Doomwake Giant gonna move in here. No blocks on the Stormbreath Dragon, of course, no flyers out there.
And this is a spot where Andy still has to respect the possibility of Murderous Cut, but I believe he's sensing that it's not there.
Yeah. So the 4/6 is in front of the 5/5. Really make a move.
Back players' seatings for the Legacy Open are posted.
It's also just a question of how
In the center of the room.
conservative can you afford to be when you know these Hornet Queens are coming down the pipeline.
Yeah,
Find your seat. Seatings for the Legacy Open.
it's a real question. 4 damage is going to come across. He's going to play a replacement Pelucranos. Did not see that coming.
Whoa.
That's very surprising. He had a Rabble Master in his hand that he elected not to cast.
Yeah, for example, I'm not sure if there's a big plan here with that Setessan Tactics, but for example there, he could have played post-combat Rabble Master plus Setessan Tactics, my Caryatid, finish off your Doomwake Giant. Feels like a pretty solid turn.
You know, in that instance, I kind of just want to use Setessan Tactics pretty aggressively just to get another point of damage across, because I might just be on the plan of, if I'm Andy, of Stormbreath Dragon's monstrosity has to kill you,
Yeah.
you know? It's very clear to me that John doesn't have the ability to get a lot of cards out of his hand very quickly. So
Back players who want to sign up for the Modern Premier IQ
And his mana base is a little painful too. Like if you're expecting Hornet Queen to come down, you can say, okay, well, I know what's on top of your deck. I can see that if you need to cast Hornet Queen, you have to take 2 points of damage to do that. So let's imagine, he's going to go down to 6, I believe, to cast Hornet Queen this turn. If you use the testing tactics, you have him at 5. Maybe the monstrosity is enough to kill him. Maybe not. Or yeah, maybe the monstrosity activation.
I mean, at the point at which that's going to be your turn, what Andy just did, I would have preferred just also pre-combat, use testing tactics on Pelucanos, shoot down the Courser.
Sure.
And play a Rabble Master attack with Stormbreath Dragon.
Sure. Now Hornet Queen showed up. Tactics shelf life may be gone now. He's had it for the entire game and just hasn't really found a great way to use it.
I understand the urge to play around Murderous Cut. I do not believe what Andy did the previous turn qualifies.
Yeah. There's also, too, at the beginning stage of the game, right, we saw 2 Murderous Cuts get turned over, so you can only play around it so much, right? There's only 2 left in your opponent's deck. Yes, they haven't played one just yet, but can you afford to even play around one? Does it make sense to try to play around one?
I just don't even think that qualifies as playing around it.
Sure. If that's going to sacrifice the Foothills, go get a Forest. Because what it looks like to me, potentially here, as we're going to see here, it looks like a Rabble Master, is that if Vess had used the testing tactics aggressively on the Dragon, I believe Pharaoh would be at 5. He has 4 cards in his hand. And if he activates Monstrosity in the draw step, would be Xaxes. Now here's the testing tactics. This and this. Well, actually 3 creatures.
I mean, this is not too bad. It allows him to clear out, I would imagine, the Doomway Giant and the Courser.
Yeah, don't fight those bees. I would want to kill. I don't want to kill Hornet Queen. You can't do that.
No, I think that token just has to. I think that token is just attacking.
Well, it's fight. He strived onto it to have it fight.
Oh, okay.
So and I'm fine with that. Just kill one of the insects. Just don't kill Hornet Queen. You can't kill that card. You have to let that stay in play forever, basically, because you don't want to whip back anything. And right now he would have 5 cards in his hand, so that game plan that I laid out may have actually won him this game.
Or at least cause him to modify his play. Maybe he has to cast Whip instead of a second Hornet Queen.
Yeah. Because now, clearly now this is where things get really, really ugly. He's untapped, he's got 7 mana. He's got another Hornet Queen in his hand, he's got Sidisi. He's got a Whip in his hand. He's got a lot of options.
Good morning, Legacy players, and welcome to the Legacy Open in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah! Y'all are a lively bunch today. My name is Jason Flafford. I'm a level 3.
See what the play's going to be here.
I'm organized play coordinator for Star City Games. It's my pleasure to host you today at this Legacy Open. A few announcements before we get
Looks
started.
like maybe Satyr Wayfinder, maybe not. It's a tough turn here for John.
Yeah, the threat of Stormbreath Dragon is really challenging. He also doesn't know. It's not impossible that Andy's brought in his Lightning Strikes or something like that. His Arc Lightnings could be in the deck.
A little bit of reach.
Yeah, so he has to also consider the, though low, potential of getting burned out on top of the Stormbreath Dragon trigger.
Satyr Wayfinder.
Check out their stuff.
There's a Forest.
Also,
That'll be the land for the turn.
no food and drink on the table.
Looks like 4
You
mana.
don't want your cards to turn into Mountain
There's Sidisi.
Two-Name Nemesis.
So Zombie's going to come in now, too.
All right, fine.
Sequencing felt a little backwards there. I guess he was just looking for a land first, but to inform his decision on what he can do.
No tobacco products in the room at all. That includes e-cigarettes, so please keep that out.
Which I think is reasonable,
Sure.
because John's hand has so many permutations to it.
Magnet players, you should have a deck list in front of you. There's a waiver on the back of that deck list. If you do not have a waiver, raise your hand and call a judge.
Players sitting across from you, please raise your
Pelucranos and Satyr.
around and make sure that
Excuse me, Sylvan Curiated are the only 2 cards here in Vess's hand. And I don't know how he gets through this now. Like, this is the situation you don't ever want to be in when you're playing against this deck. And now I don't know if there's any way for him to break through.
Yeah. I mean, he can Storm Breath
great pleasure to introduce
inside of John's draw step, and then basically hope John tricks himself into not playing the whip or not attacking aggressively enough. But
We've gotten to the state in the game where Whip of Erebos matters.
yeah.
And I think the entire goal is to get to the state where Whip of Erebos doesn't do anything.
And for the first few turns of the game, you know, Andy was putting enough pressure on John where that's what was going on. John had the whip the whole time and could never deploy it.
And that's how he won game 1, or game 2.
Yep.
Just overloading with Satyr tokens, making it so that casting Whip is never a good option.
There are a couple of things that I want to make sure that everybody.
Maybe a monstrosity activation in the draw step.
Today we are playing at competitive rules enforcement level. That means 2 things for you guys. That means that we expect you to understand how your cards work, understand how the rules work, and
James Hames, a number 3 overall seed, does win our backup match. Abzan midrange takes care of Nick Vesey playing Mardu midrange. So he'll be playing against Brian Scholl, who is also playing Mardu. So another of that on the other side of the bracket. And then Matt Bond playing Abzan midrange is waiting for the winner of this one. And it looks like he might be heading John Farrow's way now.
It may take a while, but I do think that we've hit the point of no return.
Yep.
Even if Andy rips a Reclamation Sage or something to deal with this whip, I still think he's going to be hard-pressed.
He has to rip Reclamation Sage.
Yeah.
To be able to play Magic now. And the problem here is that Pharaoh is going from 2 up to something more than that.
during your match, make sure you keep track of your belongings.
2,
please.
4,
We have
6, 7, 8.
at past events had some instances of theft. If you have your
So he's gonna go up to 10.
foot or a chair leg and you have it in front of you rather than behind you on the
He's
floor,
got all those flying insects back on defense.
leave your possession.
People like to call them Doom Blades back on defense. There's the whip. See you later.
During the day today, when you call for a judge, please make sure that you leave your hand in the air.
So Wayfinder goes to the graveyard from the block on Pelucranos.
But we are not that good at finding which player.
And then Hornet Queen does get removed because of the whip activation. But now, you know, this is the same spot that Vess was in game 1.
Exactly.
You know, and there's really no great way for him to get out of this. You know, Stormbreath Dragons, its time is over now that Hornet Queen and all those insects are out there. Pelucranos can't generate enough of an advantage to go crazy and shoot all of this stuff down. And Rabble Master is just outclassed on this board.
Done with your match, please sign your match slips and bring them up to the stage as soon as you're finished.
As you mentioned, it might take a little while, but I think this one's heading Pharaoh's way. And I think Vess is starting to realize that here.
Well, Andy had a couple different ways to sculpt out this game, too. He had the opportunity at the turn that he cast Pelucranos in the first place to just play a Stormbreath Dragon. That's much worse if John has a Murderous Cut in hand. Andy doesn't care about the initial Pelucranos getting hit because he has so many.
The choice whether to play or draw. At this time, I'm going to ask you guys to please take a look at your deck list. I'm going to give you a full minute to verify that you have at least 60 cards in your main deck.
Bunch of attacking, bunch of creatures dying.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big fight off that Tessin Tactics.
Yeah.
Full card names and numbers next to each card. And while you take this card,
Damage gonna come through.
write the table number in the
Unfortunately, this now frees up Sidisi.
corner of your deck list.
It's going to be a fun turn for Sidisi, I think.
Yes.
That's what I think we're going to have here.
Magic players are looking for a few people, so if I call your name, please
Take a
raise
draw.
your hand and
Opulent
give your name.
Palace.
Devin Bagley.
That'll come in.
Devin Bagley.
Trying to figure out how much damage you can deal.
Zach Cato.
Gonna bring back Doomweight Giant. I was trying to figure out if he can just attack for lethal here. 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
James
Yeah, I think he's got
Yeah,
it.
if he's at 13, this is looking to be lethal.
Grizzle.
Attack stab. Yeah, that's going to do it. John Farrow's going to win this match here over Andy Vess. 2-1. Saltai Reanimator will take care of Green Red Monsters. And that means Farrow is moving on to our semifinals to play against Matt Bond, playing Abzan midrange.
And that was a good demonstration of the power of Whip of Erebos in that sort of matchup. I think Game 3, there's a lot of different lines that Andy can take. You know, on that, I believe, 4th turn of the game, he had that opportunity to play Pelucranos or Stormbreath Dragon. Played the Pelucranos because it looked like it advanced his board in a comparable way. And if John has Murderous Cut, then he ends up getting rid of one of the redundant Pelucranoses instead of the Stormbreath Dragon. But the fact that he was a turn behind on the Stormbreath Dragon and the Pelucranos never really ended up doing anything, any of his copies, I think was just enough for John to